Hello and welcome to the third week of the Butler Eagles High School Football Podcast. We like to call it Upon Further Review. I'm Derek Pyda. I'm a sports writer for the Butler Eagles. So is he. He's Brendan Howe.
Sports editor, we promoted.
This editor?
Yeah.
Sports writer. Yeah, by the way, he took over your job. He's sports writer along with me. We're John's minions, and John is the sports editor of the Butler Eagles. The king of Sting, they call him. Speaking of Sting, wow, some of our teams took one on the chin last week. Yeah. Even the ones that were able to keep the game close, they felt the sting of a loss. Brendan, what stood out for you about week 2 of Butler High School?
Well, the first game that stood out to me was one of our teams that lost in Knock after seeing the Little Indians play Freeport. They played Indiana last week. I believe that Indiana was a much better team than Knock. I didn't see this one being as close as it was. But as we talked about, Knock did make some strides. They pushed this game to overtime. Couldn't quite pull it out, but I thought that was interesting, being that Knock kind of showed some improvement there. And then the next game was one that I covered, Slippery Rock and Mercer's Prep. We know all about the Rockets' aerial attack, but they kind of shut that game down. With a balanced mix late, a really long drive in 3 plays, 99 yards to kind of put it away. And their run defense kind of buckled down, but the only thing they couldn't account for was the Lakers quarterback, David Baum. He ran for 119 of the team's 142 yards, but it's definitely what Larry Wonders wanted to see in terms of that run defense and also that grit from his offense.
John, what say you? What stuck out for you about week 2?
I'll tell you what, one game that I missed badly on last week was Freeport South Allegheny. Freeport rolling to a 37-15 win. They're impressed me. That's back-to-back pretty impressive wins for the Yellow Jackets. So they're piling up points, which is usually when they win down there, they do it on defense. But now they're piling up points, so I'm impressed by Freeport. I echo Brendan's thoughts on the Knock game with Indiana. Cody Mullen, some clutch passes in overtime on 3rd and 4th down at different points in that game. Tough loss for the Knights, but again, echoing Brendan's comments, I think they showed some major growth spurt last week under a new head coach. And then the third game I want to mention, Mars, 51-7 over Newcastle. I mean, I know Newcastle played Summer Academy the first week. Maybe they didn't learn a lot about the Red Hurricanes from that game, but it's usually a pretty solid program. For Mars to beat them by that margin opened up my eyes. It could be a big year for the Planets also under a new first-year coach.
The game I covered was Seneca Valley at home against Peters Township. And Ron Butchley told me going into that game, one of their goals on defense was to get pressure on Peters Township's quarterback. Talented kid, but pretty inexperienced. This was only the 3rd game he had played in at the varsity level. And in one respect, Seneca Valley's defense was effective. They got to this kid 7 times, forced a fumble on one of those 7 sacks. But when they didn't get to him, the kid passed all through their defense, 342 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. This week, Seneca Valley opens up conference play, and as you know, their conference only has 5 teams.
Yeah.
So you either make or miss the playoffs based on your performance in 4 conference games. This week, Seneca Valley hosts Cannon McMillan. They've got to right the ship on defense because Cannon McMillan has a kid named Mike Evans, who is a very capable quarterback, and he has more experience than Peters Township's quarterback did coming in the last week. And also, probably the game that opened my eyes the most, not in a good way for our local team, is Union AC Valley, 43-7.
Yeah, surprising. Yeah, and one other game I need to mention, the game that I covered last week, Elk County Catholic 15-6 winner over Montauk, simply because Elk County Catholic lined up and ran the single wing the entire game, and I have not seen a single wing offense in high school football for years. And they ran it, not perfectly, but effectively. They ground out some first downs. They only have 19 players on their roster. That team is 2-0 now. They only have about 19 kids, so it was just a real throwback for me to see the single wing used to that.
Time's up. Now that you're only a sports writer, you got less time to talk. We're going to give the microphone to this guy over here. I want to get his thoughts first on our first discussion topic. You know, we've got 2 weeks in stats. You've seen what the kids have been able to do, the players on different teams. It might sound like a small sample size, but when you think about it, the year's only 10 weeks long.
That's it.
So it's actually a pretty decent sample size. Brendan, I want to get your thoughts on this. Who do you think, what players do you think will lead us in Passing yards, rushing yards, and receiving yards this year. We'll see what you come up with here.
So with passing yards and receiving yards, it's a tandem I wrote about in our tab, the cover story. William Mokel from Slippery Rock. I'm pretty sure he'll have a huge season. He had over 300 yards on Friday night. He isn't afraid to throw it deep. From his own 1 yard line, he threw a pass that ended up being 42 yards the other night. That was a big part of the 3-play 99-yard drive. And he's just not afraid to air the ball out. So John Saba, who also had one of those acrobatic catches, he came out on his shoulder. He was out the rest of the game, but he's a big beneficiary of Sabo throwing that ball deep, and he even took a screen pass. I think it was over 40 yards for a touchdown to open scoring last week. In terms of rushing, Mars Enrietto is currently on pace for 1,815 yards. He has an average right now of over 180 yards a game. So as long as he keeps that pace up, or even close to that, he'll be the leader in our county.
John, do you have any difference in opinion with Mr. Howe?
A slight difference, but only slight. Quarterback, he mentioned William Mokel was obviously a good choice, but I still like Max Schnurr at Butler to lead us in passing this year. He's over 400 yards through 2 games. Doesn't have his top target back yet. Brendan Howe, he's been out early season with a finger or thumb injury. May come back this Friday. If he doesn't come back this Friday, but definitely the following Friday, I think that'll jumpstart Butler's passing offense still more. So I like Mac Schnurr to really get on a roll here and win. We don't really have a passing title, but to lead us in passing yards. Evan Wright, I agree 100% with Brendan there. Over 200 yards last week, and he's going to get the carries. I mean, Mars is making no bones about it. He's their workhorse. He's their guy. He's going to get the carries, and with them not being able to throw the ball a little bit, it's going to open up more holes for him. So I like Evan Wright, and I also agree with John Sabo. Acrobatic receiver, off to a great start. He's going to get more than his share of targets in Slip Rock's offense. So I like Sabo to edge out, by the way, Mike Rupp over at Garden City.
Oh, this actually turned out to be a pretty good topic. Thank you very much. Because I have one difference too. I'm going with you with quarterback. I think Max Schnurr is going to lead our coverage area in passing yards. I'm agreeing with you, both of you. I think Mars is Evan Wright. Obviously barring injury. I mean, he's on pace for a great season. What did you say? Over 1,800 yards.
Nope.
Receiving is where I differ. I think I'm going to go with Luke Lawson down at Seneca Valley. They have several targets for Graham Hancock's in that offense. Aiden Lysick being one of them. Chris D'Apollonia can catch balls as well. But right now, through 2 games, Luke Lawson 15 catches for 169 yards. I don't know if anybody in our coverage area is going to get to 1,000. In high school, that's pretty
a
rare.
lot of yards for a high school season.
But by the end of the year, I think Luke Lawson, great athlete, also plays well on defense. I think he's going to be leading our coverage area in receiving yards. So that was a good mix of players there. We talked about players from all 3 districts. That's what we're here to do, is promote the local athletes. They're all
watch out though for Brendan Littlejohn. He will catch up in a hurry. He will. He's that talented.
Well, watch out for Brendan Littlejohn. The next thing is we have not talked about the Butler football saga on our show here. Mm-hmm. Amongst ourselves, we've talked about it, but on our show, it hasn't been discussed. John, I'm going to run through it real quick. If I'm wrong on anything, just slap me in the head and correct me. Butler football, this is their 3rd season competing in District 10, correct?
Correct.
The last 2 years, they were able to compete in the District 10 playoffs. Last year, they lost.
To compete, yeah.
Yeah, they lost in the District 10 title game last year.
Correct.
To McDowell.
Yeah, that was a single playoff game. That
okay.
was the District 10 title.
So this is their 3rd year competing in District 10, and all of a sudden, this past offseason, the Whitbill, Butler's former home, jumps up and says, oh, wait a minute, you can't compete in the District 10 playoffs this year. Now, as far as we know, this is still in litigation, basically. So nothing's been decided. But what are your thoughts? You're obviously close to the Butler football program. What are your thoughts on the Whitbill, Butler's former home, stepping up and saying, wait a minute, the district you compete in now, you can't compete in their playoffs? I just think it's pretty bad.
Well, the issue here is the WPIAL, which of course is District 7. It's better known in these parts as the WPIAL. So it's District 7, which is geographically Butler's home district. So the WPIAL, as the home district, can come out and say, you can go play outside of our district, but we don't want you in the postseason. We don't want you to qualify for the playoffs to another district. It's bad for high school football. If you want to make the playoffs, you should play in your home district. That's all well and good. And now the PIAA also has the authority to overstep that, and they can say, no, District 7, you're wrong. They can play in the playoffs if they qualify. However, the PIAA backed up the WPIAL on this. So that left Butler with no choice to either, well, they want one of two options: either accept that ruling and just play the season and not be eligible for postseason play, or they can challenge it legally through the courts. They obviously chose the latter route. As you say, it's still in litigation. I don't like it for the simple reason that I think the WPIAL was trying to have its cake and eat it too. There are, I believe, as many as seven football programs who compete in the WPIAL from other districts, and they can make the playoffs in the WPIAL, even though that's not their home district. So in my view, why can't somebody leave the WPIAL, compete in another district and make the playoffs there? I mean, to me, there's a conflict there, a contradiction, and to me, it's not right. They should be eligible to compete in the District 10 playoffs. Should they qualify? And the only way they qualify, Butler's one of 3 teams in District 10 that are 6A. Erie and McDowell being the 2 others. Butler would have to beat Erie in reality to qualify to face McDowell, which is, to me, is clearly the top dog of those 3. So it may not mean anything if Butler loses to Erie, because they wouldn't qualify anyway. But if they do beat Erie, in my view, yes, of course they should be able to go to the playoffs.
Well, I got my own thoughts on this, but we're going to hand it over to Mr. Howe. What do you think? Hey, we're talking about a Butler football alum here.
Yep.
So give us your thoughts.
That being said, it's never fun coming out in the first quarter. I'm sure John's covered his fair share of Butler games where by the end of the first quarter, the game's pretty much in hand. It's never enjoyable when a team comes out and hangs 21 on you and you're fighting back and you're down the whole game. And that was a lot of my experience playing for Butler. So I agree. I don't think that the Golden Tornadoes should be able to be kept out of playoff. They're enjoying a competitive sort of atmosphere in District 10. Where they have a chance each and every week. Even at Shaler, who is a District 7 team, they won that first game in pretty entertaining fashion. I just think it's wrong that Butler isn't, well, as of right now, isn't allowed to play the playoffs.
Right. I just want you pointed out about schools that are actually outside the WPIAL to compete in the WPIAL. I got some examples.
And not just football, that's
right.
basketball also.
Right. I also got some examples of schools that are actually boundary-wise inside the WPIAL that play outside the WPIAL. You got Wilmington, Slippery Rock, West Shamokin. All those schools are in the confines, the boundaries of the WPIAL.
Could be in a WPIAL if they wanted.
If they wanted to, but they've chosen to play outside the WPIAL, just like Butler has. Now, I know with Wilmington, Slippery Rock, I mean, those schools have been in District 10 for years.
Yeah.
West Shamokin just moved from the WPIAL about 7 or 8 years ago. Now they compete in District 6. But Butler decided to play a District 10 schedule. They were in District 10. And it was after that, for this season that we're in right now. And then it was after that the WPIAL came in and said, hey, you can't compete in the District 10 playoffs. Well, Butler wasn't going to be in the WPIAL this year anyway.
You know what? Part of that, though, too, is part of the WPIAL stance anyway, is football is the only sport in which Butler's not into WPIAL. Right. I think that plays a role here.
Right. But the WPIAL put up a fight when Butler originally went to District 10.
No, as far as I know, they didn't.
No.
Unless there's something I don't know, but as far as I know, no. There was
the WPIAL is concerned because its highest class, 6A, is down to 5 teams. That's the reason they want Butler back, because it's a 5-team field now. 4 of the 5 teams make the playoffs. They want as many teams in the class 6A as they can get.
Right.
And, if I was Butler, I'd say, hey, we'll see you in a few years.
To me,
it's Butler's choice it should be Butler's choice to make the best decision for that football program, and they've made it. Now the WPIAL's kind of stepping in and say, well, you can compete in District 10, but you can't compete in the postseason. I think it's hogwash.
It's not a good look for the PIAA in general when one of its member schools has to go through a court system to try to make the high school football playoffs. To me, that is not a good look for Pennsylvania high school football.
We could spend the next 40 minutes talking about this, but we got to move on. John's favorite segment each week. We'll see if he likes it this time. I came up with a couple of over-unders. I thought it would be challenging. We'll see if it's a sweep. We don't want a sweep. I don't want a sweep. I like it to be a little bit difference between the two of us, between the three of us. You're one, too. North Catholic hosting LiQWYD. I believe this game's down at J.C. Stone Field only because LiQWYD's field is being renovated. LiQWYD, number 1 in the state, ranked last time I checked, number 1 in the state in Class 4A. Coming to Stone Field to face the Trojans of North Catholic. The over-under is 41.5 points combined from both teams. What do you say?
This seems like a very marquee matchup, just kind of like Red Bank Valley and Carson City was last week. It's when you kind of get excited for knowing both teams are talented and successful. But I think with the talent that North Catholic and LiQWYD have on defense, that this one will go under.
Oh, under. John?
Well, before I give my over, I want to give the current over-under standings. I keep track of that this year. Jeez. Brendan is at 500. He's sadly leading away at 2-2. I'm at 1-3. Derek, you are 0-4 thus far in the over-under category. So there is some pressure on you this week to go shine that way. But I'm going to respectfully disagree with Brendan. I'm going over on this. Of course, we'll make our picks later on, so I won't give that away. But I think both these teams can score points. Both these teams have athletes, even with defensive stops. I think it's going to go over 41.5.
It's a good over-under because we're split. It's a split decision. I'm agreeing with Brendan. I'm going to go under here. Obviously, both teams have athletes, but that athleticism extends to the other side of the ball too on defense. And I don't think either team's going to put up a ton of points. Give my pick later, but I see both teams combining for less than 41.5. All right. This next one might be a little bit of a challenge to not get a sweep. I think I should have upped this a little bit, considering the way Evan Wright's run the ball and the struggles that Blackhawk has had in their first 2 weeks. Evan Wright leading the county in rushing right now. I believe he has 357 yards. Yep. They're playing Blackhawk this week. The game's at Blackhawk. 130.5 rushing yards for Mr. Wright. Do you go over or under, Brent?
Blackhawk, as you mentioned, has been struggling. They've been blown out in both their first 2 games. And Evan Wright is on a roll, so to speak. I'll go over there.
John, you agree with Brendan?
I agree with the over. As you mentioned, Blackhawk struggling, and no team throws the ball unless they have to throw the ball. And Mars has already made no bones that they're going to put the ball in Evan Wright's hands. He's going to get a lot of carries early. I think Mars is going to get a lead early. They're going to ride him. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another 200 over this week. So I'm going way over on.
Okay, see that I had a few too many Diet Mountain Dews when I came up with this one. I should have gone over too. I'm going way over. I think he's going to put up about 170, 175 yard game. But good for him, just not good for being a little bit different when we come to over-unders. We're all going over for Evan Wright. Evan, the pressure's on you. Playing at Blackhawk this week, we're sure you're going to have a good game along with the rest of the Mars team. Week 3 picks coming up. We're going to start off with a game John's going to be covering up on the hill. Brashear at Butler. John, what say you?
Well, Brashear's got a young team. I talked to the coach earlier this week. He only has, I think, 2 starters back on offense and defense. Only 4 lettermen back who started the games for them at all last year. They also have they have 2 Division I linebackers. One of them is going to Penn State. He's out for most of this season. He's recovering from off-season knee surgery. He's out. The other linebacker, who's going to Akron, a stand-up player, turned an ankle last week. He's out for this week, so the top 2 defensive guys out of this game. Bodes bad for Brashear. I see Butler bouncing back and winning 35-18.
You going with your boys up on the hill, Brendan?
Being that Brashear's allowed over 42 points in each of his first 2 games, and John mentions those injuries there. Yeah. As long as Butler can deal with the run, they couldn't do that great last week. I think it'll be closer, but the Golden Tornado will come out on top 24-20.
Now, this game is worth going to, by the way, because Brashear coach insisted his senior running back, Sean Solomon, he openly called him the best running back in Western PA this year. So it'd be worth just going to, if you're looking for a game to go to, might be worth it just to check out that kid. I guess he's pretty good.
Okay, the game I'm going to be at this week, going to be back at Seneca for the 2nd straight week. Good pizza at halftime, so I'm looking forward to it. Seneca Valley hosted.
Did you pick the Butler game? I didn't hear you pick it. Did you pick it?
Butler, 41-17.
Okay. I'm used to
Good
it.
answer.
It's been a long weekend. I got the
All
holiday,
right.
you know, Labor Day. I'm not used to working.
No, okay.
I'm going home after this, by the way. Camden McMillan, Butler's going to win 41-17. The game I'm going to be at, Seneca Valley, hosting Camden McMillan. This is the second straight week that Seneca Valley gets to play an offense that can throw the ball. And like I said, Camden McMillan's quarterback has a lot more experience than Peters Township quarterback did entering that game. And Peters Township's quarterback threw all over Seneca Valley. So do you think the Raiders have what it takes to right the ship in just a week, John?
Well, first off, are the buses broken at Seneca? This is their third straight home game. They can't go on the road. I don't know. But anyway, I think Seneca Valley bounces back. They bounce back. They win 28-13. Too talented of a team to start out 1-2. They've had 2 nail biters. This one's not going to be quite the nail biter. They won by a couple touchdowns.
Brendan, you agree?
In honor of college football being back in Corso, not so fast. I'm gonna go with Camden McMillan coming down on top here. Not only do they have a quarterback that can sling the ball around, he has 7 touchdowns over his first 2 games. They also have a running back who's gone for over 7 yards per carry, including the 86-yard run that he had earlier this year. So I'm gonna go with Camden McMillan, continuing Seneca Valley's woes, winning 21-17.
Wow. Well, I'll give you this. My pick is basically based on Seneca Valley just has so much talent on both sides of the ball. I just can't see them losing 2 straight, especially a game that this is their first conference game. They've got 4 games to prove they either belong or don't belong in the playoffs. This is the first one. They're playing at home. It's Hall of Fame weekend for Seneca Valley. I think they right the ship at least for 1 week. Come up with the big plays on defense and some big plays on offense, obviously, too. I got the Raiders winning 30-14. All right, things don't get any easier for Knock. They go from losing a heartbreaker out in Indiana to headed to Beaver Falls this week. Brendan does not get its first win. It's a tough test playing the Tigers on the road.
Knock will get a win, just not this week. Being that they're on the road, like they'll be this entire year, honestly. That combined with the fact that Beaver Falls, I think they're 1-1. They're coming off a loss to their rival in Beaver. I'm going to go with Beaver Falls win 35-24.
John.
Not so fast, my friend. To throw that right back in your face. Knocking a lot of confidence last week despite a loss. They obviously made major improvements from week 1 to week 2. That improvement will continue. Beaver Falls, I don't think is all that strong. This will be a good game, but I'm going with the Knights to break through 27-21.
Wow. Well, the player that throws it over the top for me as far as making this pick is the quarterback for Beaver Falls, Jaron Brickner. Last year, 3,000 yards rushing and passing combined, 25 touchdowns. I think he's going to be too much for that Knight defense. 38-12. Beaver Falls playing at home. I think they win big. 38-12. Beaver Falls.
Okay.
All right, a game we kind of touched upon already concerning Mars running back Evan Wright. He will be running against Blackhawk this week. John, Mars at Blackhawk. Does Blackhawk deal Mars their first loss of the season?
No, mismatch, Planets roll 42-14. Simple as that.
I like it when you're quick because I get tired of hearing you talk. How about
There you go.
Blackhawk has scored a touchdown or less in both of its first 2 games. This one isn't going to be close, like John said. I'm going to go 38-13.
We're all in the same boat here. I'm picking Mars 37-8. Not going to be close. I'm just really impressed with not only Evan Wright, but that defense too. Giving up 7 points to Newcastle. Newcastle's always got some athletes, so we'll see if the Plans can continue it. We don't want to jinx them, but we're all picking them this week against the Blackhawk Cougars. Quaker Valley at Freeport. Brendan, a team that you deal with a lot, Freeport, coming off an impressive win at South Allegheny, where the Gladiators were opening up their revamped stadium. Does Freeport continue its winning ways?
Like John mentioned, not only can they do it on defense, as we've seen, but we saw them do it on offense last week. I think that continues here. That they know that they're in maybe the driver's seat to win their section now that North Catholic's gone. I'm going to go with Freeport to start the season with a 3rd straight victory, 28-17.
John, do you agree?
I do agree. I'm sold on Nate Jackson. Like I said, 2 impressive wins to start the season. I just think they're playing just better than Quaker Valley. I think Jackets win 31-14.
31-14. Quaker Valley lost their first game of the year And last week they were supposed to play Mohawk, but we all know what's going on with
Yep.
Mohawk right now.
Yep.
Mohawk's not playing any games because they have a hazing allegation within the team, and their football team has been placed on hold. So Quaker Valley is I guess I'm sure they practiced last Friday, but this will be their first game in a 2-week span. I like Freeport to pick up the win at home, 25-7. All right, another game we talked about earlier, LiQWYD coming to North Park to play North Catholic at Stone Field. John, what chance do you give the Trojans?
I think the Trojans. I think they can hang with the Quips. I really think they are. I mean, North Catholic has ability. They play with confidence. Playing a game at home is going to help them. I just think LiQWYD will win out in the end. But I expect this to be a thriller, kind of a back and forth type game. But I'm going with LiQWYD 28-21.
All right, Brendan, you go to the Quips or the Trojans?
I got to see last year when North Catholic got to run into a supremely talented team in Central Valley. LiQWYD is at least around that sort of talent. I'm going to go with LiQWYD to beat North Catholic. North Catholic will learn some lessons in this one, but LiQWYD will roll away 35-20.
Okay, LiQWYD started the season as the top-ranked Class 4A team in the state. They played Armstrong at Armstrong, and it was actually a battle. I think LiQWYD ended up winning that game by 2 touchdowns. But, a lot of times when you come away with a win like that, you can look on tape and say, man, we got to do this better. We got to improve here. We got to improve here. I think LiQWYD is going to do that. I see them winning this game. I think their offense is going to make some plays, but I think the thing that's really going to stand out is their defense here against a really talented North Catholic offense. I got the Quips winning 28-10. All right, a team that really needs to get off the schneid here. They're 0-2, not used to being 0-2, John. Karn City hosting Ridgeway. How do you got this game going?
Or Ridgeway / Johnsonburg, just to be
Sorry.
politically correct. But anyway, angry bunch of gremlins, got to be, as you mentioned. They're not used to being 0-2. They don't like being 0-2. This Ridgeway / Johnsonburg team, whatever you want to call them, only scored 6 points in both of the first 2 games. That's not going to cut it against Karn City. Especially it's KC's home opener. They're going to roll. I pick Karn City 35-6.
You agree with your boss? He's watching you.
A whole lot of purple in Karn City on Friday nights, as we know. The last time I got to see these two teams face was in Brockway. It was about 20 degrees outside. Karn City used their running game and the defense to run away with a 35-7 victory to win the District 9 title. It's going to be warmer this time. Karn City, it's not going to be the same sort of offense that I saw last season with the run that they're trying to mix in the pass, as we've talked about before. Karn City will get back on even footing here. Notch their first victory at home, 35-20.
All right, I'm agreeing with you guys. This Ridgeway team, I think they must have, as you said, they played Karn City last year for the district title. I think they must have lost a lot from that team because they have not been impressive in their first 2 games. Karn City gets their first win of the year in easy fashion, 37-7. I don't look for the Elkers / Rams, whatever you want to call them, to put up much of a fight here. Gremlins by 30 at home at Dill Stadium on Friday. Montauk at Cameron County. Here's another one. In Montauk, Class AA team facing a single A team on the road. They played a single A team last week and lost. Do you see them winning this week, John?
I do, actually, because Montauk, I covered that Montauk game last week. They just made mistakes at critical times. Game was scoreless with Elk County Catholic late in the second quarter last week, and Elk County Catholic at the time, and I'm talking about 2 minutes left in the first half, they had 1 first down, they had like 20 yards of offense. Montauk throws a pick, they return the ball inside the 20, score on the next play, make the 2, end up holding on for a 15-6 win. Montauk's got some talent. They're physically stronger than they were a year ago. I think they're going to go on the road, break through, get a win this week. I'm not impressed with Cameron County. I'm picking the Warriors 21-12.
The Warriors get their first one of the year.
I'll go with Montauk to win as well. I know I'm a little bit cautious making this pick. I know John talked me into taking Montauk last week after listening to me. So
be your own man, Brendan. Be your own man.
I'll go with Montauk. They're not going to score a lot of points, but they will pull out an ugly victory, 14-10.
Montauk goes on the road. I've been to Emporium, by the way. Beautiful country up there. Not too much electricity, though. Montauk wins this game 20-16. They get off the schneid, come home with a victory. All right, Union AC Valley. at Central Clarion. They're trying to right the ship after losing 43-7 last week, and this is a tough team to try to get back on track against Sean.
It is a tough team to try to get back on, and none of us saw a 43-7 loss. We knew there was a chance that Keystone would come down there and win, but to beat them by that type of margin, nobody saw that coming. And to me, Central Clarion they're back. You remember last year they struggled early in the season, but if you also remember last year, they got their act together late last year.
They did.
And I think they continued with that early going this season. I like their team. I think East Valley is going to be licking their wounds a little bit. They'll put up a fight, but ultimately Central Clarion wins this game 35-21.
Okay, Brendan, what say you?
Union AC Valley, we were high on them coming into the season. After a loss like that, they're not going to be taking it easy in practice. I'm guessing they're going to be driven. I'm going to disagree with John. I'm going to say Union AC Valley gets back in the win column here, 28-14.
Okay, you mentioned, John, that last year Central Clarion got things going toward the end of the year.
They did.
The big reason for that was their quarterback Jace Ferguson, who started their very first game last year against Slippery Rock. I covered it. True freshman. This isn't college. He was a freshman playing, and it looked, he looked like a deer in headlights, like you would expect a freshman quarterback to look. He made progress as the season went on, and through 2 games this year, he's got 583 passing yards. So he's obviously gotten a lot of experience, and he's playing well. I think Union AC is going to keep this game rather close, but I think this is just a tough test to try to get back on track, and I think the Wildcats are going to win this game 29-18. I believe this game is being played at the university. That's usually where they play their games up there. Greenville at Slippery Rock. Brendan, we'll go to you. You work with Slippery Rock. Did they make it 3-0?
I saw Slippery Rock last week, and that game shouldn't have been as close as it was. Like I said earlier, the only thing that kind of kept the Lakers in that game was the quarterback using his legs. He's 6'5", he's a big guy, and he was rumbling through that Slippery Rock defense. But that rushing defense, like I said earlier, again, that was very stout. That's something Coach Wenderoos talked about in the preseason, that his team's fortunes would depend on whether they can stop the run. And their offense, they have Brett Galsick in the backfield, they have Maddox Allen. Both can run the ball, both take swing passes for touchdowns. Galsick got a 62-yard touchdown, I think it was, last week off a swing pass. It's hard to keep up with Slippery Rock, so I'm going to go with them winning this game 28-17.
John, do you agree with Brendan?
I do agree. I think Greenville's offense having trouble putting up points. I think they scored 10 points in 2 games. It's not going to cut it when you're playing against an offense like Slippery Rock. So I think the Rockets win big, 27-7.
I'll make this quick. 34-6 Rockets. They're going to roll.
Okay.
Summit Academy at Springdale. Springdale, I believe they got a new coach this year. Summit Academy going to their Summit Academy's been shut out 2 straight weeks, so their offense is obviously struggling. John, what's your pick here?
Well, Springdale, it's not going to be a blowout because Springdale's struggling too. They lost their first game 48-0. They lost 37-14 in their other games, so they're not exactly rolling it up. But Summit Academy last week, they took one on the chin. I think 69-0. Maybe it was at Leechburg. Springdale wins, but Summit does sprint through and score. But I'm picking Springdale 26-6. More competitive game.
I'll just move it on. I'm gonna pick Springdale 30-8. Brendan, do you agree?
Anthony Bacote, Summit Academy's head coach, said that they only run a few plays. Doesn't seem from the scores we've seen that those few plays have really worked for them. I'm going to go with Springdale as well. But I do think that they'll score more than John thinks. I think they'll win 36-0.
Still no points for Summit.
Okay. Hey, we got to go through our picks here real quick.
Right.
We all struggled last week. Me and Brendan and Scoop went 7-4. John, you actually ended last week with a losing record.
Bad week.
That's tough to do.
It's tough to do. Bad week. Well, although if you recall last week's show, I said this was going to be a tough week. And it was a tough week.
But Brendan wants you to know that he's here for you. I'm not, but if you need somebody to talk to, he's your guy.
Well, we'll see.
The standings right now.
Season's not over yet. That's all I got.
Me and Scoop 17-5. Brendan 16-6. John's the caboose at 15-6. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about backyard rivalries, but we're going to kind of go away from the gridiron. I want you guys to think about some of the rivalries in our coverage area that involve at least 1 or 2 of our teams: Slippery Rock, Grove City, Seneca Valley, North Allegheny, Seneca Valley, Butler, obviously Montauk, Karn City. Do you think the backyard rivalry connotation extends beyond? I put basketball on here too.
Oh, sure, right.
Basketball and football. John, do you think the energy is there for facing your backyard rival in baseball or volleyball like it is football or basketball?
Well, I'm going to give a very wishy-washy answer to this question, but it's the only answer that I have. Honestly, it depends on the situation that involves the sport. For example, volleyball for Butler and Seneca Valley. Butler, I think, is fired up to play Seneca Valley every year because of the dominance of the volleyball program down in Seneca Valley.
Boys and girls.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't think Seneca Valley, treats that the same way, because the Seneca Valley's rivalry in volleyball is NA because of the quality of that program. And you go on, you can look, but then the Seneca Valley Butler in baseball, big rivals because both the quality programs.
Right.
So I'm saying, and what you mentioned basketball the same way. So I really think it depends on the quality of the program. The exception to that rule, in my view, one of the best rivalries I've ever come across in high school sports is Corn City Montauk. I think if Corn City Montauk played each other in ping pong, they'd be fired up. I mean, it's just those two schools. It's just such a natural rivalry. They're so close together. They're two rural small school programs. Both take pride in athletics. So I think Corn City Montauk, yes, to answer your question, it is hyped up. I think no matter what the sport, but some of these other rivalries, I think it depends on the situation.
Brendan, you've had about 36 hours to think about this. What are your thoughts?
John actually answered that in the way that I would have. Carn City Montauk, I got to cover a girls basketball game. Carn City, I think it had implications where Carn City Montauk, the winner, would be, I think, the leader in the division or in the district last year. But the entire gym at Montauk was packed. You could barely find a seat in there. And afterwards, Carn City was going nuts that they won this game and sort of put themselves in the playoff position. They're pouring water on their coach and all that. Definitely with Carn City and Montauk, everyone's out to see the sports on Friday nights or whatever night basketball games are. I know they're not just Friday nights. But Butler Seneca Valley, I was part of that rivalry, and I always was excited to play Seneca Valley in football. We didn't really win that much. We didn't win at all, actually. But I think that Carn City and Montauk get more up than Butler does for Seneca Valley, or Seneca Valley does for Butler.
You ever notice that Butler football noticeably improved once you graduated?
I just want to throw one thing out there. I think obviously if it's Carn City Montauk, you want to win in any sport, and you want to beat your rival or the school that's right next door to you. But I honestly believe that the more physical a sport is, that's the rivalry just gets more amped up. I know this is pro, but I think it does hold a certain meaning here. You hear people talk about that have played in that Baltimore-Pittsburgh NFL rivalry.
Sure.
Ben Roethlisberger, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs,
Right.
Troy Polamalu. And they'll say that in that game, the hits are just a little bit harder, more crisp. The energy level going into a game like that is just, as opposed to, Baltimore playing the Jets or the Steelers playing the Colts, there's just something about that week leading up to the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game that's amplified. And I think the reason for that is, I think the more physical a sport is, the more you get up to play, the more emotionally you have to get up to play a team. Right? I
Sure.
mean,
But I know I'm dating myself here when I bring this up, because I'm going way back into the 70s. Pirates versus Phillies and Pirates versus Reds. Baseball, not known as a physical sport, but those were two intense rivalries between.
Why don't you have that anymore, though? Not just with the Pirates. I'm talking about anywhere. Do you have that in baseball? Do you have a rivalry that you can say right now in the major leagues equates with Pirates, Phillies, Pirates?
I think you do. I think Yankees, Red Sox will always be that way, and I think.
You must work for ESPN.
And I think, and I think to a degree, Dodgers, Giants also.
Well, we saw rivalries last week with West Virginia and Pitt. That game was insane. So it's definitely at the college level more so than the high school level, I think.
Backyard rivalries 2.0 coming up in a few weeks with Brendan Howe leading the way. We would like to encourage people to check out the Upon Further Review podcast every Thursday, 7 a.m. on Spotify. And we would like to encourage our readers to pick up Sunday's Butler Eagle, covering 6 games this week, John, shooting 4.
Correct.
And obviously details on the other 5 games. Enjoy the week, and good luck to our area teams.